We'll restart the recording, talk about the review. So this is 70 slides, a greatest hits compilation from last semester. Away we go. So first off, big picture, between versus within. You're going to hear me talk about this ad nauseum this semester because it's such a big thing. So we're still in the context, if you think about levels of analysis, of occasions at level 1 being nested in persons at level 2. So in multi-level modeling, level 1 always goes with within, level 2 always goes with between. The question is within and between what? In this context, it's within and between person. And if you're somebody who is examining, departments or schools or organizations, those are your people, essentially. You can think about them as individual units. So level 2 is time invariant stuff, between person stuff, things that begin as cross-sectional studies. This is where that would start from. Within is level 1, time varying, intra, individual, all those words, and that's the extra part that longitudinal designs afford you. What makes this tricky is that while we can say that time invariant predictors are solely between, anything that we're considering time varying is almost never solely within. It's a mixture of both. So then if we're thinking about, like my go-to example is stress, some days are worse than others, that's level 1 within. But between people, some people will report more stress than other people on average, like all the time. That's between. So the trick with these models is to figure out what sources of between person variation are sort of hidden in a repeated measured variable, and how do we isolate those and examine relationships with those. So we can also have interactions. Maybe the effect of having a worse day than another day is better if your stress is lower than other people's. Like if you're not that impacted on a general basis, having a little worse day than usual is not as bad as if you have a ton of stress in your life and you're going up to here, then that's worse for you. So that would be an example of a cross-level interaction of between and within parts of the same variable. So time then, this is going to be something that some of you will have to think about, is what aspects of time are relevant. And it boils down to the context that you're interested in and your sampling design. So if I'm interested in within person change, so in studies in which seeing people change and change differently is the point, then you would want to have measurement occasions that are far enough apart to actually see that happen. So in long-term studies, time and study is my go-to. It's the one that is the least strong in every case. That's Unit 3, we'll talk about that. But other folks might be interested in age-related change, so like developmental stuff, grade-related changes if you're interested in academic learning outcomes, time to and from an event. So for instance, if you have a diagnosis of a disease state, what does one's behavior look like before that? What does it look like afterwards? Or any other kind of critical event like, I don't know, a landslide, a hurricane, a forest fire, COVID. There's a lot of terrible events that happen to us, unfortunately, and that may be the time metric of interest. How long has it been since this terrible thing happened? Within person fluctuation, then, that's a different animal. So there, how long it's been since you started the study may not be as relevant as what's happening on the occasions in which you're being measured. So you may have trends related to time of day. So if you measure cortisol, for instance, that follows a trajectory in which it spikes 38 minutes after waking and then gradually dissipates. Other kinds of things like, fatigue and enthusiasm and arousal, those may fluctuate up and down across the day. Day of the week. If you're studying, workplace things, are Mondays different than Fridays? Day in study, if you're concerned about reactivity to measurement. You'd have to think carefully about what the logical possibilities are and then try to examine empirically which of these show patterns that we need to keep track of. So last semester we had just a couple examples and it was like, well, this is time. This is time 0, time 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm waving at the special guest. Pets and people, extra participants, right? I like your hanger. It's cool. You should help your mom with the laundry. She'll appreciate it. Yeah, my kid puts his clothes away. That's one of his chores. And by puts his clothes away, I mean tries to fold it in half and then shove it into the drawer so that everything is like stacked and he can't possibly open it. So that's what I mean. Hi. I'm going to go into my mama voice. Does time vary within persons or between persons? Okay, no. I'm not Dr. Mommy right now. So we're talking about accelerated designs in this context, or what is known as overlapping cohort study. That's a synonym for that as well. And if people vary in the time metric that you're interested in at the beginning, that's when you have to worry about this. So if you start with people of different ages and follow them over time, if you start with babies at different points of being out of the NICU or out of their parents, then those are differences you have to pay attention to. So those then become the between part, and then what happens to them as they grow older is the within part. And our models have to understand that those are two different things. The same thing is true if there's more than one kind of within person time. So it is very common in daily designs to measure people repeatedly through each day over multiple days. So then you have like level 1 within day, level 2 across day, level 3 between person in that case. And then you have two kinds of time that you're keeping track of with respect to change and individual differences. So it gets complicated real quick. Another thing to keep in mind is whether your time is balanced or unbalanced. As a reminder, the way that I'm using these words is, are people measured on the same possible outcomes in terms of when, same possible occasions? That's balanced. So if I have pre-test, mid, post-test follow-up, that's balanced. If I have morning, lunchtime, dinner time, bedtime, that's going to be unbalanced, as we've discussed. Lunch is at 11:30 or 4:30 for some of you. Bedtime is at 9:30 for some of us and 4:30 in the morning for others. So that is unbalanced. And those kinds of differences need to be part of the model for you to be able to capture all of the sources of variability. And if you're in an accelerated time design, that is by definition unbalanced because you don't have the same possible occasions. You have people starting at different points, which means then they have different follow-up points as a consequence of that. So balanced is the easy case. If you have balanced time, that's where most standard SEM software can be used to do longitudinal analysis. Because what ends up happening is that you take the factor loadings that work as slopes connecting your latent variable to your observed outcome. Those are fixed to constants. You're like, this is time 1, this is time 2, this is time 3, neat and tidy. What you can't do is say, I need this to be time 1.1 for this person, time 1.4 for this person, and time 2.6 for this person. The software needs to understand that and be able to implement it. And I only know of T-Scores and M+, and OpenMX that has the capability of that. Those are known as definition variables, by the way. So unbalanced time is the reason why M+ is my go-to program for these kinds of models. So questions or thoughts on that? Okay. And then a continuum of how to think about different kinds of longitudinal designs, ranging from within person change, where time is the point. You're trying to see what happens to people and how it happens differently. So these kinds of trajectory differences would be what you would be interested in, versus fluctuation, where time is just a way to get a lot of data. You don't necessarily care if someone answers the prompt at 2 a.m. versus 2 p.m., other than trying to keep track of whether it was morning or night. You just want to have enough data to be able to see within person processes operate. And so most studies are not clearly one or the other. There's some type of thing in the middle, but which one you're in guides you towards which kinds of models are going to be most essential for you. There, we did it. I promised only 4 slides. So this is the transition point where we talk about reviewing. And that's a good thing to start next time, don't you think? I think so. Yeah, let me stop the share then. Bring everybody's faces back. Okay, so day 1, we did it. Woohoo! Any questions or comments before we adjourn for now? No, we're good to go? All right, then go enjoy your Tuesdays. Let me know if you need anything, and I hope to see you on Thursday, hopefully in person. We're going to have like a high of 25 or something glorious like that, so we'll make it work. All right, bye for now, folks. Have a good one.